Let's start with a math problem. If you save $500 a month every single month without fail, assuming no car breakdowns, no medical emergencies, and zero inflation, how long will it take you to save a 20% down payment on the average American home today? If you were doing this calculation in 1980, the answer was about 3 to 4 years. It was a grind, sure, but it was a visible finish line. You could see it, you could touch it. Today, if you are a member of Gen Z earning the median income doing that same math, the answer is roughly 27 years. 27 years. By the time you have saved the down payment for the starter home of 2025, you will be nearly 50 years old. And that is assuming the price of that home doesn't increase in the next 3 decades, which, as we all know, is a joke. Welcome to the housing trap. If you are watching this and you were born between 1997 and 2012, you probably have a pit in your stomach every time you think about the future. You feel like you're running on a treadmill that's set to a speed you can't match, and every time you look at the controls, someone from an older generation is cranking it up while telling you to just run better. We need to stop pretending this is about work ethic. We need to stop the gaslighting. In this video series, we aren't going to talk about mindset, and we aren't going to talk about skipping lattes. We are going to look at the cold, hard, terrifying data that proves a simple hypothesis. Homeownership for Gen Z isn't difficult. It is becoming mathematically impossible. Let's look at the gap. This is the only chart that matters. In the 1970s, the median home price was roughly 3 times the median household income. This is the golden ratio. It meant that a house was a significant purchase, yes, but it was structurally tied to what people actually earned. Today, that ratio has exploded. In many major metropolitan areas where the actual jobs are places like New York, Los Angeles, Toronto, London, Sydney, the price-to-income ratio is now 10x, 12x, or even 15x. Let's contextualize that absurdity. Imagine walking into a grocery store. For 50 years, a gallon of milk cost $3. Suddenly, you walk in today, your salary hasn't changed, but that gallon of milk is now $18. And the person standing next to you, usually a boomer who bought their milk for a nickel back in the day, leans over and whispers, "You know, if you just stopped buying avocados, you could afford that milk." It is an insult to your intelligence, and it masks the brutal reality of the deposit gap. The barrier to entry isn't the monthly mortgage payment, though interest rates at 7% make that a nightmare too. The real gatekeeper is the cash required upfront. To buy a median-priced home in the US today, approx. $420,000, you need roughly $84,000 cash for a healthy down payment plus closing costs. Let's call it $100K liquid cash. For Gen Z, accumulating $100,000 in liquid cash while paying rent is a statistical anomaly. This creates the primary feedback loop of the trap. You cannot buy because you have no capital. You cannot save capital because you are renting. You must rent because you cannot buy. It is a perfect closed circle of poverty extraction. You are paying someone else's mortgage, likely a boomer's or a corporation's, while your own ability to build equity erodes with every inflation adjustment. Furthermore, the very product you're supposed to buy no longer exists. The starter home, that humble 1,200 square foot, 2-bedroom bungalow that the boomer generation used to build their initial wealth, has been eradicated from the market. So Gen Z is left fighting over the scraps. You are entering the ring as a 24-year-old with a graphic design degree and $12,000 in savings. Your opponent in the bidding war is BlackRock. It is a retired couple from California paying all cash. When you see a 25-year-old doom spending dropping $400 on a dinner or buying luxury skincare despite having no retirement savings, society calls them irresponsible. I call them rational. If the goal a house costs $1 million and you can only save $500 a month, the goal is effectively zero. This creates a bifurcation of Gen Z, the heirs and the serfs. The scariest part, the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed for the people who already own the assets. Your struggle is their equity. We established the crime scene. Gen Z is locked out. The math doesn't work. But every crime needs a motive and every crime needs a weapon. When you ask an older relative why houses are so expensive, they will likely give you a lesson on supply and demand. That is a half-truth. It's a convenient lie that hides the intentional manipulation of the market. The housing crisis wasn't a natural disaster like a hurricane or an earthquake. It was an engineering project. It was built, brick, by specific policy choices designed to prioritize the wealth of existing homeowners over the survival of future generations. Exhibit A, the NIMBY wall. For decades, the most powerful political force in local government hasn't been a political party. It has been the homeowner association. It has been the not-in-my-backyard crowd. In the majority of American residential land, upwards of 75% in cities like San Jose or Seattle, it is literally illegal to build anything other than a detached single-family home. You cannot build a duplex. you cannot build a townhome. Why? Because scarcity creates value. If you are a boomer who bought a home in 1990 for $150,000, your greatest financial interest is to ensure that no other homes are built near you. If supply remains low and demand rises, your asset value skyrockets. They pulled the ladder up, they bought the house, and then they banned the construction of the house next door. This is why we have a shortage of millions of homes today. It wasn't that we couldn't build them, it's that we chose not to. Exhibit B, the financialization of shelter. Sometime in the late 20th century, we decided that a house shouldn't just be a place to sleep. We decided it should be a retirement account, a piggy bank, and a stock portfolio all rolled into one. The government subsidized this. Through tax breaks like the mortgage interest deduction and capital gains exclusions, the government essentially paid people to take on massive debt to buy homes, betting that the prices would always go up. In a healthy economy, you want the price of essentials, food, energy, shelter to remain low. But in the American housing economy, a drop in home prices is treated as a national emergency. The entire economy is held hostage by the need for home values to keep rising. This means the government is incentivized to ensure you pay more. If housing became affordable again, if prices dropped 40% to meet Gen Z wages, it would wipe out the net worth of the baby boomer generation. The system effectively requires Gen Z to be sacrificed to keep the boomer retirement solvent. Exhibit C, the corporate raid, then came the sharks. After the 2008 crash, we saw the entrance of institutional investors. Wall Street firms realized that since people couldn't buy, they would be forced to rent. We are talking about massive hedge funds and private equity firms buying thousands of single-family starter homes per month. They sweep into markets like Atlanta, Phoenix, and Charlotte, paying all cash, waiving inspections. This is the yieldification of the American dream. To a corporation, a house is just a yield-bearing asset like a bond. They don't care about the community, they care that the rent check clears. By removing starter homes from the purchase market and turning them into permanent rentals, this forces you, Gen Z, into the rental market, where you pay rent to the very entities that outbid you. You are funding their acquisition of the next house. Exhibit D, the lost decade of building. We also have to talk about the physical reality of construction. After the 2008 crash, the construction industry was decimated. We stopped building. For 10 years, we underbuilt relative to population growth. Builders shifted their focus. Why build a $200,000 starter home where the profit margin is razor-thin when you can build a $800,000 luxury unit? The costs of land, labor, and lumber have all skyrocketed. So here is the system in a nutshell. 1. Restrict supply, NIMBYs. 2. Incentivize debt, government. 3. Corporate capture, Wall Street. 4. Construction failure, no starter homes. This is why working harder doesn't fix it. You cannot outwork a supply shortage. You cannot side hustle your way out of a market where your competitor has billions of dollars in cheap capita. This isn't a market failure, it's a market success. The market is doing exactly what it was designed to do: concentrate wealth in the hands of asset holders. If part 1 was the diagnosis and part 2 was the autopsy, part 3 is the prognosis. So here we are, we have looked at the math and it is brutal. We have looked at the system and it is rigged. Now we have to look at the future. The most common question I see is, when will it crash? We are waiting for the bubble to burst. We are waiting for 2008 to happen again, hoping that if prices plummet, we can finally swoop in and pick up the pieces. I need to tell you a hard truth. A crash might not save you. If the housing market crashes tomorrow, who is in the best position to buy? Is it you, or is it the private equity firm sitting on billions of dollars of dry powder waiting for a discount? A crash in 2025 doesn't redistribute wealth to the poor, it consolidates assets for the rich. Unless the structural rules change, a dip in prices is just a flash sale for BlackRock. So if we stop waiting for a savior and we stop waiting for a crash, what are we left with? We are left with two potential futures. One is dark, one is different. Future number 1, neo-feudalism. This is the path we are currently on. In this future, homeownership becomes a hereditary privilege, not an achievable milestone. Society splits permanently into two castes: the landed gentry heirs and the rent serfs. If you are in the second group, you will pay 50% of your income to the first group forever. You will own nothing. This is the subscription model of life. But there is another perspective, a stoic adaptation. We have to consider the possibility that the American dream, the specific version sold to us involving a white picket fence, is dead, and maybe, just maybe, we need to stop worshiping its corpse. For the last 50 years, we have conflated success with property deeds. We have been brainwashed to believe that if you don't own land, you aren't an adult, you aren't a citizen. But look at places like Vienna, Austria, or heavy parts of Switzerland and Germany. In these places, renting is the norm. It isn't seen as a failure. It's seen as a lifestyle choice that offers flexibility and freedom from the burden of debt. So what is the stoic pivot for Gen Z? 1. Kill the FOMO, fear of missing out. You must accept that you cannot time the market. Torturing yourself by scrolling Zillow for houses you can't afford is a form of self-harm. Stop it. Radical acceptance of the current reality is the first step to sanity. 2. Redefine investment. If you cannot buy a house, you cannot rely on a house to build your wealth. The traditional boomer path was buy house, house value goes up, retire. You have to build a different engine. The S&P 500 historically has actually outperformed real estate in many periods. You don't need a house to build a net worth. You need discipline and a vehicle for compound interest. 3. The political long game, yism. Cynicism feels good, but it changes nothing. The Yes in My Backyard movement is the only political force fighting for you. Be the voice that says, build it, overwhelm the NIMBYs. 4. Opt out of the geography. This is the nuclear option. If the city you live in has decided you are too poor to live there, leave. The greatest leverage Gen Z has is mobility. Remote work, despite the return to office mandates, is here to stay for many. Taking your salary from a high cost of living area and moving it to a low cost of living area is the most immediate pay raise you can give yourself. Look, I want to end on this. The system has betrayed you, that is a fact. The ladder was pulled up, that is a fact, but you are not powerless. You only become powerless when you judge your life by a scorecard written in 1950. If you never own a home, are you a failure? No. If you rent until you are 90 but you traveled, you loved, you created art, and you built a community, was that a wasted life? No. The ultimate rebellion against a system that wants to squeeze you for every penny is to refuse to be miserable. The economy is fake, the math is made up, but your time is real. Don't spend it mourning a dream that wasn't yours to begin with, build a new one. Text appears, the game is rigged, play a different one.